Hadrian's cycle route, approximately 170 miles from Ravenglass on the west coast to Tynemouth on the east coast. Ravenglass, or the Roman bathhouse to be precise, is the official starting point, but it's not the easiest place to get to. Having to transfer the bikes over to the west coast meant an early start for us all. On arrival at Ravenglass, we made any last-minute adjustments before setting off on the first leg, Ravenglass to Silloth, which is approximately 50 miles. With Bill leading the way, followed by his son Paul, we set off at a nice steady pace. The weather conditions were perfect, but luck was against us. Within the first 10 miles, Bob had experienced a puncture. This was quickly repaired by Neil, while Bob kept us entertained. Thankfully, he's decided to keep his day job. Back on the road again, and a few miles further on, Bob had yet another puncture. Punctures were being caused by the green protective strip within the wheel, which, incidentally, was there to protect the wheels from such mishaps. This time we had Bill to thank for the repair, while Paul looked on with interest. They say bad luck comes in threes, only this time it was yours truly. Came flying off my bike and damaged the gears. Stepped forward once again, Neil. Leaving the bad luck behind us, we were soon back on the road. The first section is mainly flat, following the coastline through small villages such as Seascale, passing numerous windmills before arriving at Sellafield. Passing Sellafield and heading downhill for about 2 miles into Egremont, and then on to Whitehaven, where we made our first unforced stop at Greg's the Baker's for a quick refuel. I quite liked Whitehaven. It had a Mediterranean feel about it. Then it was onwards and northwards along quiet roads and dedicated cycle paths. The route then follows the coast road, where it officially becomes an area of outstanding natural beauty, before turning off into the back roads of Silloth, where we were all looking forward to a nice hot shower and a refreshing pint, and not necessarily in that order. The second day had us travelling from Silloth to Haltwhistle, which is approximately 65 miles. After a good night's sleep and a hearty breakfast, a quick look at the map, we were once again on our way. Another nice day with some outstanding countryside. Cycling eastwards on what appeared to be a long Roman road, which proved very popular for cyclists and walkers alike. Dave and Neil, with energy to burn, took time out for an uphill challenge, with Neil coming out on top. What made the trip enjoyable for me was a nice leisurely pace, and of course the good weather played a big part. Actually, I could do with some spare parts for the bike. Time was marching on, and there was a long way to go before reaching Greenhead Youth Hostel. Crossing over the M6, I came upon a small village hosting a scarecrow competition, with some fabulous scarecrows on display, all very realistic. Apart from the last one, scary, yes, realistic, no, definitely not. Passing the statue of King Edward I, which stands proudly to commemorate the 700th anniversary for the campaign against Robert the Bruce. Moving on through Brampton, where there was a lot of Roman evidence scattered about. Two of us had got lost in Brampton, eventually arriving at our destination after what had been a very long day. For myself, the final day proved to be the longest and the hardest. After giving the bikes a final once-over, it was head-first into a very steep hill. There proved to be quite a lot of these between Haltwhistle and Hexham. Passing through Haltwhistle before arriving at Errington Ray Pottery in Bardon Mill. The pottery proving to be one of the highlights of the trip. Quite a strong resemblance, I think. After looking around outside, we ventured indoors to see the professionals at work. There were two men working happily inside, making and preparing pots for the kiln. The potter's head moving from side to side in rhythm with the wheel. They averaged about 60 pots per day. Leaving Bardon Mill behind, there were several hills to climb before a long downhill into Vindolanda Roman Museum. Bad luck was to strike for a final time, this time in the shape of an injury. We had just been joined by Alan Bulmer, another work colleague who cycled in from Newcastle to join us for the last leg of the journey. It was then that we lost Dave through a leg injury which occurred the previous day. So it was with great disappointment that Dave had to leave the gang and was last seen heading towards Hexham rail station in a taxi. After passing Hexham, we decided to stop off at Corbridge for refreshments. Do you think there's a possibility of an exchange of bikes? No, nor do I. Leaving Corbridge, the countryside takes in part of the Tyne Valley, using riverside paths, back lanes and small village routes. Passing the cottage where George Stephenson was born. That's him of rocket fame, railways, miners' lamps and numerous wives. On the approach to Newcastle, it was time for everybody to head off in different directions. So we all said our farewells. Myself continuing through the city of Newcastle, admiring such landmarks as the Baltic Flour Mill, the Millennium Bridge and the Sage Music Centre. The route then heads east following the Tyne towards North Shields and Tynemouth. Finally arriving below the statue of Lord Collingwood. Looking back over the past few happy days, the route took in some fabulous scenery, picturesque villages, and the weather had been fantastic. The journey had been most enjoyable. Here's looking forward to our next cycle trip.